The morning started like any other in the small apartment on Cedar Street. 8-year-old Alex sat at the kitchen table, his legs swinging as he spooned cereal into his mouth. His father, Paul, moved around the kitchen in a hurry, checking his pockets for keys and wallet, glancing at his watch every few seconds. "You're going to be late for the bus if you don't hurry up," Paul said, pouring himself coffee into a travel mug. There was something different about him today, a nervousness in his movements, the way he avoided looking directly at Alex. "Can we go fishing this weekend?" Alex asked, hopeful. They hadn't done anything together in weeks. His father was always working or sorting things out, whatever that meant. Paul paused, his hand on the refrigerator door. "Maybe, buddy. I've got some business to take care of first." He closed the fridge and grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair. "Listen, I need to head out for a bit today. Important stuff." Alex's spoon slowed. "But you'll be back for dinner, right?" This wasn't the first time his father had to leave suddenly for business, but he always came back by evening. "Yeah, of course. Just need to take care of some things. There's leftover pizza in the fridge for lunch and more cereal if you want it for dinner if I'm running late." Paul ruffled Alex's hair, a gesture that once felt affectionate but now seemed automatic. "You know the rules, right?" Alex nodded. He knew them by heart. Don't open the door for strangers, don't tell anyone he was home alone. Call Mrs. Rivera next door if there was an emergency, though she was getting older and didn't hear well anymore. That's my big guy. Paul's smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked around the apartment one last time, and for a brief moment, Alex thought he saw something like sadness cross his father's face. "I'll see you soon." Alex finished his cereal and put the bowl in the sink, then grabbed his backpack. His father was already at the door, keys jingling in his hand. "Bye, Dad," Alex said, giving him a quick hug. Paul seemed surprised by the gesture, then hugged him back, holding on just a little longer than usual. "Be good, okay?" Paul said, his voice slightly rough. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Alex walked to the window and watched his father get into their old blue sedan. Paul sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel, then started the car. As the vehicle pulled away, Alex felt a strange knot form in his stomach. Something felt different this time, but he had school to think about. He couldn't be late again or his teacher would call home. Alex locked the apartment door behind him and hurried to the bus stop, pushing away the worry that had started to take root. The school day passed in a blur of math problems and history lessons. Alex found it hard to concentrate, his mind drifting, back to the way his father had looked that morning. During lunch, he sat with his friend Tom, but barely joined the conversation about the new video game everyone was talking about. "Earth to Alex," Tom said, waving a hand in front of his face. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired," Alex replied. He didn't mention his father's departure or the weird feeling he couldn't shake. When the final bell rang, Alex rushed to his locker, grabbed his things, and hurried to catch the bus home. The whole ride, he imagined walking into the apartment and finding his dad there, with an explanation about why he'd seemed so strange that morning. Maybe he'd even picked up Alex's favorite takeout as a surprise. But when Alex unlocked the apartment door, he was greeted by silence. The living room was exactly as he'd left it, his father's coffee mug still sitting on the counter where he'd set it down before changing his mind and pouring the coffee into his travel mug instead. "Dad?" Alex called out, dropping his backpack by the door. No answer. He wasn't worried yet. His father had said he might be late. Alex went to the refrigerator and found the pizza box with 3 slices left inside. He took one out and ate it, cold while starting his homework at the kitchen table. Hours passed. Alex finished his homework, played some video games, and watched TV. Outside, the afternoon light faded into evening. He kept the volume low so he would hear his father's key in the lock. By 9 o'clock, Alex had changed into his pajamas and brushed his teeth. His father still hadn't called. This wasn't completely unusual. Sometimes Paul forgot to charge his phone or got caught up with work. But combined with the strange way he'd acted that morning, Alex couldn't help feeling worried. He tried calling his father's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. "Dad, it's me, just wondering when you're coming home. Call me back, okay?" Alex waited another hour before finally climbing into bed. His father had stayed out late before, and had sometimes even crashed at his friend Ray's place when it got too late. That must be what happened, Alex told himself. He'd probably be back in the morning, apologizing for not calling and making pancakes as a peace offering. But when Alex woke up the next day, the apartment was still empty. His father's bed hadn't been slept in. Now real worry began to set in. Alex got himself ready for school, moving through his morning routine on autopilot. He kept expecting to hear his father's key in the lock, the familiar sound of his footsteps. The silence of the apartment seemed to grow louder with each passing minute. At school, he couldn't focus at all. His teacher, Ms. Chen, noticed his distraction and asked if everything was all right. "Yes, ma'am," Alex lied. "Just didn't sleep well." When he returned home that afternoon, his hope that his father would be there waiting dimmed when he saw the apartment exactly as he'd left it. The note he'd written that morning, "Where are you? Please call me," remained untouched on the kitchen counter. That night, Alex heated up a can of soup for dinner and tried his father's phone again. Still straight to voicemail. He considered calling Mrs. Rivera next door, but remembered his father's strict instructions. Don't tell anyone he was alone. If people found out, they might take him away, put him in a foster home. His father had made that very clear. "It's just you and me against the world, buddy," Paul would say. "We have to look out for each other." By the third day, Alex had established a routine. Wake up, get ready for school, leave a new note for his father, go to school, come home, check for any signs that his father had returned, make dinner from whatever he could find, do homework, try calling, go to bed, and repeat. He started rationing the food in the kitchen. There wasn't much, some cereal, canned soup, peanut butter, bread that was starting to get stale. His father usually went grocery shopping on Fridays, but Friday came and went with no sign of Paul. The weekend stretched before Alex like an endless desert. With no school to distract him, the hours crawled by. He spent time looking out the window, watching for his father's blue sedan to pull into the parking space it always occupied. He cleaned the apartment, thinking that maybe his father would be impressed when he returned to find everything tidy. By Sunday night, a full 5 days after his father had left, Alex sat on the couch with his knees pulled up to his chest, fighting back tears. He'd never gone this long without hearing from his father. Something must be wrong. Maybe Paul was hurt, in a hospital somewhere. Maybe he'd been in an accident. The thought made Alex's chest tighten with fear. But another thought had begun to take root, one he tried desperately to push away. What if his father wasn't coming back at all? No, that couldn't be it. His father wouldn't just leave him. They were a team, the two of them against the world. Paul had promised after Alex's mother left when he was just 4 that he would never abandon him. Not like her, he'd said bitterly, as Alex crawled into bed that night. He clutched the photo he kept on his nightstand. The 3 of them, his mother, father, and himself as a toddler, all smiling at some beach. His mother's face was slightly blurred, as if the camera had caught her already in the process of leaving. His father looked younger, happier, and Alex, just a small child, unaware of what was to come. "Please come back," Alex whispered into the darkness of his room. "Please," but the only response was the distant sound of traffic outside his window, and the steady tick of the clock on his wall, counting down the seconds of another day alone. Monday morning arrived, bringing with it a new school week and the grim realization that Alex would need to continue pretending everything was normal. As he stood at the bus stop, he noticed Mrs. Rivera watching him from her window, a concerned look on her face. He gave her a quick wave, the fake smile he'd practiced all weekend firmly in place. At school, his friend Tom asked why he hadn't answered any texts over the weekend. "My dad took my phone away," Alex lied, the words coming easier now. "Got in trouble for staying up too late playing games." The lie worked, and Tom launched into a story about how his own parents had similar rules. Alex nodded along, part of him listening while another part wondered how long he could keep up this charade. How long before someone noticed that his father was gone? How long before the food ran out or the electricity got shut off or some other disaster struck that an 8-year-old boy couldn't handle on his own? As the bus dropped him off that afternoon, Alex walked slowly to the apartment building, dreading the empty rooms that awaited him. But as he climbed the stairs, a tiny spark of hope still flickered. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today his father would be there. He turned his key in the lock, pushed open the door, and called out, "Dad, are you home?" The silence that answered told him everything he needed to know. 2 weeks had passed since Paul left. 14 days of Alex waking up alone, getting himself to school, and coming home to an empty apartment. 14 days of checking the mailbox for notes, listening for footsteps in the hallway, and jumping at every sound that might be his father's key in the lock. Alex had settled into a routine that felt both impossible and necessary. He'd become an expert at stretching what little food remained. A single can of soup could last 2 meals if he added water and some stale crackers. The peanut butter jar was nearly empty now, scrapes of his knife leaving long marks inside the plastic container. The away mornings were the hardest. Sometimes, in those foggy moments between sleep and waking, Alex would forget. He'd lie in bed and hear sounds from the kitchen, convinced his father was making coffee. Then reality would crash back, and the apartment would feel even emptier than before. School had become his safe place, a space where everything still made sense. Alex threw himself into his classwork with new determination. If he focused on math problems or history facts, he didn't have to think about the growing knot of fear in his stomach or the question that haunted him day and night. Was his father ever coming back? "You've been doing really well lately, Ms." Chen told him after he turned in a particularly good science project. "Your dad must be proud." Alex nodded and forced a smile. "He is," he lied, the words sticking in his throat. "He helped me with some of the research." Each day brought new challenges. The milk ran out, then the bread. The electricity bill arrived in the mail with a red final notice stamp across it. Alex didn't know what that meant exactly, but he knew it wasn't good. He placed it on the growing stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter. Money was another problem. Alex had found some cash in a kitchen drawer, emergency money his father kept for takeout or unexpected expenses. $37 and some change. He used it sparingly, buying a loaf of bread and some cheese from the corner store where the cashier didn't look twice at a kid shopping alone. Nighttime was the worst. The apartment made strange noises after dark. Creaks and groans that had never bothered Alex when his father was home. He started sleeping with all the lights on, though he worried about the electricity bill. Sometimes he'd drag his blanket to the couch and fall asleep watching TV, the voices making the apartment feel less empty. One night, during a heavy rainstorm, Alex woke to water dripping from the ceiling in the corner of the living room. He scrambled to find containers to catch the drops, pushing the coffee table out of the way as a small puddle formed on the carpet. His father would have known exactly what to do, who to call, how to fix it. Alex could only watch helplessly as the water continued to drip. That night he cried himself to sleep for the first time since his father left, not just from the fear or loneliness, but from the weight of trying to be grown up when he was still just a kid. "Are you okay?" Tom asked him at lunch the next day, noticing the dark circles under Alex's eyes. "You look really tired." "I'm fine," Alex said automatically. The response had become his shield. "I'm fine. Everything's fine. Dad's just busy with work. Normal stuff." But Tom wasn't convinced. "You've been acting weird for weeks and you're wearing the same clothes as yesterday." Alex looked down at his shirt, realizing too late that Tom was right. The laundry had piled up and he'd run out of clean clothes days ago. "Grabbed the wrong shirt this morning," he mumbled. "Was in a rush." Tom seemed ready to ask more questions, but the bell rang, saving Alex from having to come up with more lies. As they headed back to class, Alex felt a flash of anger toward his father. Why did he have to deal with this alone? Why couldn't he just tell someone the truth? But he remembered his father's warnings about foster care, about being taken away, put with strangers who didn't care about him. They'll split us up, Paul had told him once after they'd watched a movie about a kid in the system. That's why we have to stick together, just you and me. So Alex kept quiet and did his best to keep going. He developed systems for everything: when to shower to save hot water, which clothes looked cleanest, how to make his lunch money last all week by only buying the cheapest items in the cafeteria. On day 17, the electricity went out. Alex had been watching TV when suddenly the screen went black and every light in the apartment died. The silence that followed was overwhelming. He fumbled around in the darkness, finding the flashlight his father kept in the kitchen drawer. Its beam seemed painfully small against the pressing darkness. That night, Alex slept poorly. The apartment, too quiet and too dark. The refrigerator had stopped humming, and by morning everything inside had begun to spoil. The sour smell of bad milk filled the kitchen as Alex threw away what little food remained. School became even more important now. It was warm there, with lights and working water fountains. Alex started arriving early and staying late, volunteering, to help Ms. Chen with classroom chores just to avoid going home to the dark apartment. "You've become my best helper," Ms. Chen told him one afternoon as they organized books on the classroom shelves. "But doesn't your dad worry when you get home? Late?" "He works late," Alex said, the lie so familiar now it barely felt like one. "He knows I'm responsible." But Ms. Chen was watching him more carefully these days. She noticed things: his unwashed hair, the same clothes worn too many times, how hungrily he ate his lunch. Small details that were beginning to form a picture she couldn't ignore. "Alex," she said gently, "is everything okay at home? You know you can talk to me if something's wrong." For a brief, wild moment, Alex considered telling her everything. The words pressed against his lips, desperate to escape. How his father had left and never come back. How he'd been living alone for almost 3 weeks. How scared he was all the time. But fear won out. "Everything's fine, Ms. Chen," he said, focusing intently on alphabetizing the books in front of him. Really? The weekend stretched before him like an endless desert. With no school to escape to, Alex spent most of his time bundled under blankets, trying to stay warm in the increasingly cold apartment. He'd found some candles in a drawer and used them sparingly, afraid of starting a fire. The hunger was constant now. He'd eaten the last of his food the day before, a few stale crackers, and the final scraping of peanut butter from the jar. His stomach growled painfully as he tried to distract himself by reading books by candlelight. On Sunday afternoon, a knock on the door made Alex freeze. He hadn't heard from any neighbors in days, not since Mrs. Rivera had asked about his father last week, and he'd told her Paul was just feeling under the weather. The knock came again, more insistent this time. "Alex? Are you in there? It's Mrs. Rivera." Alex didn't answer, barely breathing as he sat motionless on the couch. "I know you're alone, honey?" The old woman's voice came through the door, gentler now. "I haven't seen your father in weeks. Please open up. I'm worried about you." Tears sprang to Alex's eyes. Someone knew. Someone cared enough to check on him. But the fear his father had planted still gripped him tightly. If he opened that door, admitted the truth, what would happen to him? "I left some food outside your door," Mrs. Rivera said after a long pause. "Please eat something, and Alex, you can come to me when you're ready. Apartment 4B. Anytime." He waited until her footsteps retreated down the hallway before cracking open the door. True to her word, a paper bag sat on the welcome mat. Inside, he found a sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water. Alex ate so quickly he barely tasted the food, his body desperate for nourishment. That night, curled under every blanket he owned, Alex made a decision. He couldn't keep going like this. Tomorrow was day 21, 3 full weeks since his father left. He would give him one more day. If Paul didn't come back by tomorrow night, Alex would talk to Ms. Chen. The thought both terrified and relieved. Him. Whatever happened next would be different, but at least the waiting, the pretending, would be over. As he drifted off to sleep, Alex wondered where his father was right now. Was he thinking about his son, alone in the dark? Did he feel guilty, or had he simply moved on to a new life, unburdened by an 8-year-old boy? The questions followed Alex into uneasy dreams, where he chased his father's car down endless streets, never quite fast enough to catch up. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and a light rain. Alex got ready in the dim morning light, putting on his last clean shirt and the jeans he'd been wearing all week. His hair was greasy and he smelled bad. He knew it, but without hot water or clean towels, there wasn't much he could do. As he walked to the bus stop, the weight of his decision pressed down on him. By this time tomorrow, everything would be different. People would know the truth. His carefully constructed facade would crumble. The thought was terrifying. But as Alex watched the school bus approach through the rain, a small part of him felt something unexpected. Relief. The secret had become too heavy to carry alone. The school hallway seemed longer than usual as Alex walked toward his classroom. His backpack felt heavy despite containing almost nothing, just a few notebooks and the apple Mrs. Rivera had given him, saved for lunch. His stomach growled as he passed the cafeteria, the smell of breakfast making him dizzy with hunger. In the classroom, Ms. Chen was writing the day's schedule on the board. She turned when Alex entered, her smile fading as she took in his appearance. "Good morning, Alex," she said, her voice gentle in a way that made his throat tighten. "You're early today." He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. If he started talking, he might not be able to stop. The weight of his secret pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. "Did you have breakfast?" Ms. Chen asked, moving closer. There was something in her eyes, concern, maybe pity, that made Alex want to run. "Yes," he lied automatically, even as his stomach betrayed him with another loud growl. Ms. Chen's frown deepened. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a granola. "Person, I keep these for emergencies," she said, holding it out to him. "Would you like one?" Alex stared at the offered food, his resolve crumbling. He took it with trembling hands, mumbling a thank you before tearing open the wrapper and taking a bite. The sweetness flooded his mouth, and he had to fight the urge to cram the entire bar in at once. "Alex," Ms. Chen said softly, kneeling down to his level. "I need to ask you something important, and I need you to tell me the truth." She paused, making sure he was looking at her. "Is someone taking care of you at home?" The question hung in the air between them. Alex chewed slowly, buying time. This was the moment he'd been dreading and waiting for, the end of his secret. His heart pounded so hard, he was sure Ms. Chen could hear it. "My dad," he started, then stopped as his voice cracked. "My dad left." The words felt strange, as if someone else was saying them. 3 weeks ago. He said he'd be back for dinner, but he never came home. Ms. Chen's face changed, a flash of shock quickly replaced by a careful calmness that frightened Alex more than anger would have. "You've been alone all this time?" she asked, her voice steady despite the intensity in her eyes. Alex nodded, suddenly unable to speak past the lump in his throat. "Have you been going to school, cooking for yourself, sleeping alone in your apartment for 3 weeks?" Her voice was still calm, but her hands had tightened into fists at her sides. "The electricity got shut off a few days ago," Alex whispered, "and the food ran out. Mrs. Rivera from next door left me a sandwich yesterday." Ms. Chen closed her eyes, briefly, as if collecting herself. When she opened them, she reached out and gently put her hand on Alex's shoulder. "You're very brave," she said. "But you shouldn't have had to be. I'm going to help you now, okay? You don't have to handle this alone anymore." Something broke inside Alex then. A dam he hadn't known was holding back a flood. Tears spilled down his cheeks and his shoulders shook with sobs he couldn't control. Ms. Chen pulled him into a hug and he clung to her, years of being the man of the house crumbling in an instant. He was just a kid, a scared, hungry, exhausted kid who needed help. The next few hours passed in a blur. Ms. Chen called the principal, who called someone else. A woman named Ms. Thompson arrived from something called Child Protective Services. She had kind eyes and spoke to Alex in a gentle voice, asking him questions about when his father left, what he'd been eating, who else he knew that might help. "Is my dad in trouble?" Alex asked, sitting in the principal's office with a sandwich and juice box Ms. Chen had brought from the cafeteria. Ms. Thompson exchanged a look with the principal. Right now, we're just focused on making sure you're safe, she said. Can you tell me if your dad has any family or friends we could contact? Alex thought about it. He has a friend named Ray, and my grandma lives in Florida, but I haven't seen her since I was little. They asked for phone numbers, but Alex only knew his father's cell, which still went straight to voicemail when they tried it. Ms. Thompson made notes in a small notebook, her pen moving quickly across the page. What's going to happen to me? Alex finally asked, the question he'd been avoiding. We're going to take you to your apartment to get some of your things, Ms. Thompson explained. Then we'll find you a safe place to stay while we sort everything out. Would that be okay? It wasn't really a question, Alex realized. This was happening whether he wanted it to or not. But strangely, he felt relief more than fear. The crushing weight of responsibility was lifting. Someone else was taking charge. The ride to his apartment was quiet. Alex sat in the back of Ms. Thompson's car, watching familiar streets pass by. It felt strange to be going home in the middle of the school day with a stranger, knowing everything was about to change. When they reached the apartment building, Mrs. Rivera was in the hallway outside her door. Her eyes widened when she saw Alex with Ms. Thompson. Oh, Alex, she said, moving toward him with arms outstretched. I've been so worried. Mrs. Rivera has been leaving food for me, Alex told Ms. Thompson, feeling suddenly protective of his neighbor. She tried to help. Ms. Thompson nodded, introducing herself to Mrs. Rivera, who looked close to tears. I knew something was wrong, the older woman said. I should have done more. You did what you could, Ms. Thompson assured her. Alex is getting help now. Inside the apartment, Alex felt oddly detached, as if he were watching someone else's life. The place was cold and smelled musty from the lack of heat and air circulation. Dirty dishes were piled in the sink. The calendar on the wall still showed the month his father had left, with a childish drawing of a smiley face on the day Paul had promised to take Alex fishing. Miss Thompson looked around without commenting, though her lips pressed into a thin line as she took in the conditions. Why don't you pack some clothes and anything special you want to bring, she suggested, just for a few days. Alex moved through the rooms like a sleepwalker, gathering clothes and stuffing them into his school backpack. He added his favorite book, the photo of his family from his nightstand and the small toy car his father had given him for his last birthday. He paused in his father's room, staring at the unmade bed, the clothes still draped over a chair as if Paul had just stepped out. On an impulse, he opened his father's dresser drawer and took out a faded t-shirt that still smelled faintly of his dad's cologne. He added it to his bag, a small piece of the father who had vanished from his life. Back in the living room, Ms. Thompson was speaking quietly with a police officer who had arrived. They stopped talking when Alex approached, and Ms. Thompson smiled reassuringly. All set? She asked. Officer Lee is going to help us file a missing persons report for your dad. He has some questions, if that's okay. The officer knelt down to Alex's level. He had friendly eyes and spoke in a calm, matter-of-fact way that made Alex feel less scared. Can you tell me when you last saw your father? He asked. Alex recounted, that last morning. The hurried breakfast, his father's strange mood, the promise to return by dinner. He seemed nervous, Alex added, remembering details he hadn't thought about in days. And he kept checking his phone. Did he take a suitcase or a bag with him? Officer Lee asked. Alex shook his head, then paused. I don't think so, but... He went to the closet by the front door and opened it. His father's duffel bag, the one he used for weekend trips, was missing. This is gone, he said, pointing to the empty hook. Officer Lee nodded, writing something in his notebook. Has your father ever left before? He asked. Not like this, Alex said. Sometimes he stays late, at work or goes to Ray's house, but he always calls. The questions continued. About his father's job, construction, but Alex didn't know where exactly. His friends, mostly Ray and some guys from work, if there had been any unusual visitors or phone calls in the days before he left. None that Alex could remember. Finally, Officer Lee closed his notebook. You've been a big help, he told Alex. We're going to do everything we can to find your dad." As they prepared to leave, Alex stood in the doorway looking back at the apartment that had been his whole world. 3 weeks ago, it had been a home. Now it felt like a museum of a life that no longer existed. "Can I leave a note?" he asked suddenly. "In case he comes back?" Ms. Thompson hesitated, then nodded. She gave him a piece of paper from her notebook, and Alex wrote quickly, "Dad, I'm okay. Please call Ms. Thompson." He added her number, which she recited for him, then placed the note on the kitchen counter where his father couldn't miss it. In the car, heading to what Ms. Thompson called a temporary placement, Alex watched his apartment building grow smaller in the side mirror. Somewhere in that building was every normal day he'd ever known. Birthday parties and movie nights, homework at the kitchen table with his father checking his math, falling asleep to the sound of the TV in the next room. "Where are we going?" he asked, suddenly needing to know. "A very nice family has agreed to take care of you while we look for your father," Ms. Thompson explained. "The Carters have helped other children in situations like yours. They have a comfortable home and a spare bedroom all ready for you." Alex nodded, trying to picture these strangers who were about to become his temporary family. Would they be kind? Would they have other kids? Would they make him talk about his feelings or just leave him alone? As the car turned onto an unfamiliar street, Alex felt a strange mix of emotions: fear of what was coming, relief that he no longer had to pretend, and underneath it all, a burning question that had haunted him for 21 days. Why had his father left? And was he ever coming back? The Carter family lived in a 2-story house with blue shutters and a small front yard. As Ms. Thompson's car pulled into the driveway, Alex clutched his backpack to his chest, his heart racing. Through the car window, he could see a woman standing in the doorway, watching their arrival with a kind smile. "That's Beth Carter," Ms. Thompson said, turning off the engine. "She and her husband David have been foster parents for almost 10 years. They're very experienced and very kind." Alex nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The word foster made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. His father was gone. He was going to live with strangers. For how long? Would his dad ever come back? "Ready?" Ms. Thompson asked gently. No, Alex thought. But he nodded anyway and followed her up the walkway. Beth Carter was a tall woman with laugh lines around her eyes and hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She didn't try to hug Alex or ruffle his hair like adults sometimes did when they met children. Instead, she simply smiled and said, "Hello, Alex. I'm Beth. Would you like to come inside? I just made some hot chocolate." The house was warm and smelled like cinnamon. Alex followed Beth and Ms. Thompson into a kitchen with yellow walls and plants on the windowsill. A gray cat watched them from the top of the refrigerator, its tail twitching slightly. "That's Pepper," Beth said, noticing. Alex looking at the cat. "She's friendly once she gets to know you." Alex sat at the kitchen table while Beth poured hot chocolate into mugs. Ms. Thompson and Beth talked quietly, using words like placement and case file and court date. Alex tried not to listen. He focused instead on the hot chocolate, which was real chocolate, not the powdered kind his dad used to make. After Ms. Thompson left, promising to check in tomorrow, Beth showed Alex to his room. It was small but clean, with a twin bed covered in a blue quilt, a desk by the window, and an empty bookshelf. "I know it's not much," Beth said, "but you can make it your own. Put up posters, arrange your things however you like." Alex set his backpack on the bed. "It's nice," he said quietly. "Thank you." "Dinner's in an hour," Beth told him. "David will be home by then. He's looking forward to meeting you. But for now, why don't you take some time to settle in? Rest a bit if you want to." Left alone, Alex sat on the edge of the bed feeling lost. He unpacked his few belongings: clothes that needed washing, his favorite book, the family photo, his toy car, and his father's t-shirt. He held the shirt for a long moment, then carefully folded it and placed it under his pillow. The Carters turned out to be nice people. David was a tall man with a deep laugh who taught math at the local high school. They had no children of their own, but photos around the house showed other foster kids who had stayed with them over the years. Some stayed a few days, some a few months, Beth explained during dinner, a simple meal of spaghetti and meatballs. One boy, Luis, was with us for almost 2 years. We still get letters from him. Alex pushed his food around his plate, hungry, but too anxious to eat much. "How long will I stay here?" he asked. David and Beth exchanged a look. "That depends on a lot of things," David said carefully. "But for now, just know that you're welcome here as long as needed." "Will I still go to my school?" Alex asked, thinking of Tom and Ms. Chen. "Yes," Beth assured him. "It's a bit farther from here, but David can drop you off on his way to work and I'll pick you up. We think it's important for you to keep as much normalcy as possible." After dinner, Alex helped clear the table, a habit from home. Beth showed him how to load the dishwasher. They had never had one in his apartment. And David brought out a board game. For a brief while, playing the game, Alex almost forgot the strangeness of his situation. Almost. That night, lying in the unfamiliar bed, Alex cried silently. He buried his face in his father's shirt, breathing in the fading scent. Where was Paul now? Did he know Alex had been taken away? Did he care? The next day was Friday. As promised, David drove Alex to school, making easy conversation about basketball and movies. Alex answered politely, but his mind was elsewhere. How would he explain his situation to Tom? What would the other kids say? Ms. Chen met him at the classroom door, pulling him aside before the other students arrived. "How are you doing?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. "Okay," Alex said with a small shrug. "The Carters are nice." "I'm so sorry you went through all that alone," Ms. Chen said, her voice catching slightly. "But I'm proud of you for telling me the truth. That took real courage." The day passed in a blur. Alex told Tom a simplified version of events. His dad had to go away for a while, so he was staying with a foster family. Tom looked confused but didn't ask too many questions, which Alex appreciated. After school, Beth was waiting in a blue minivan. "How was your day?" she asked as Alex climbed in. "Fine," he answered, the standard response that told adults nothing. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Beth spoke again. "Ms. Thompson called. They found your father's friend." "Ray?" Alex's head snapped up. "Did he know where my dad is?" Beth's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Not exactly, but he gave them some information that might help. Ms. Thompson will tell you more when she visits tomorrow." That night, Alex barely slept, his mind racing with possibilities. Had his father been in an accident? Was he sick in a hospital somewhere? Or had he simply left, abandoning Alex without a backward glance? Saturday morning, Ms. Thompson arrived with a police officer. Not Officer Lee from before, but a woman named Officer Rivera. No relation to his neighbor, she explained with a smile. They sat with Alex in the Carters' living room, Beth hovering nearby in the kitchen, close enough to hear but giving them space. "We have some information about your father," Ms. Thompson began, her voice gentle but serious. "It's complicated, and I want you to know that none of this is your fault." Officer Rivera opened a folder. "Your father's friend Ray told us that Paul had been having some financial problems. He borrowed money from some people, and he was having trouble paying it back." "Was he in danger?" Alex asked, thinking of movies where men in dark suits threatened people who owed money. "No, nothing like that," Officer Rivera assured him. "But he was worried about getting in legal trouble. According to Ray, your father said he needed to leave town for a while to sort things out. But he didn't say anything about me," Alex said, a cold feeling spreading through his chest. "Did he tell Ray he was leaving me behind?" The adults exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Ray said he assumed you were going with your father," Officer Rivera said carefully. "He was shocked when we told him you'd been left alone. So my dad just left me?" Alex's voice was small. "On purpose?" Ms. Thompson moved to sit beside him on the couch. "Alex, we don't know everything yet, but it appears your father made some very bad decisions. We're still looking for him, and when we find him, there will be serious consequences for abandoning you." Alex tried to process this information. His father hadn't been in an accident. He hadn't been kidnapped or lost his memory. He had chosen to leave knowing his 8-year-old son would be alone. We also found something else, Officer Rivera continued. Your father had been using a different name at his job. He told his employer his name was Peter Wilson. That's not his name, Alex said, confused. We know. We think he might have been using fake identification. That complicates our search, but we're still looking. We've put out alerts in several states. Alex felt like he was drowning in information that made no sense. His father, who had always taught him to be honest, had been living under a fake name. The man who had lectured him about responsibility had abandoned his own son. There's one more thing, Ms. Thompson said, reaching into her bag. We found this in your father's room when we went back to document the apartment. She handed Alex a small, worn notebook. He recognized it immediately. His father's important stuff notebook, where he kept phone numbers and notes. Alex had never been allowed to look through it. We found contact information for your grandmother in Florida, Ms. Thompson explained. We've been in touch with her, and she's very concerned about you. Grandma Rose? Alex hadn't seen his grandmother since he was 4, though she sometimes sent birthday cards that his father usually complained about. Yes, she wasn't aware of your situation. Your father told her you were both doing well. Ms. Thompson's careful phrasing couldn't hide the implication. More lies. She wants to see you, Ms. Thompson continued. Would you like that? Alex stared at the notebook in his hands. Inside were his father's secrets written in the familiar scrawl. I don't know, he said honestly. I don't really remember her. That's okay. There's no rush to decide. Ms. Thompson patted his knee. For now, you'll stay with the Carters while we continue looking for your father and figure out the best plan for your future. After they left, Alex sat alone in his temporary room, leafing through his father's notebook. Most of it was mundane: phone numbers, addresses, work notes. But in the back, he found something that made his breath catch: a list of cities, with notes beside each. Denver, good construction. Work, Phoenix, warm year-round. Seattle, Ray has a cousin there. It looked like a list of escape plans, places his father had considered running to. None of them included any notes about schools for Alex or places they could live together. The evidence was clear. Paul had been planning to leave for some time, and those plans had never included his son. That night at dinner, Alex was quiet. Beth and David didn't push him to talk, respecting his need for silence. After helping with the dishes, he asked if he could call Mrs. Rivera, his old neighbor. Of course, Beth said, dialing the number for him. Mrs. Rivera answered on the second ring, her voice brightening when she realized who was calling. Alex, how are you, dear? Are you okay? I'm okay, he said, surprised to find he meant it, at least a little. I'm staying with nice people. I wanted to say thank you for the food and for checking on me. Oh, child. Her voice wavered. I wish I'd done more. You did a lot, Alex told her. You were the only one who noticed something was wrong. After saying goodbye, Alex went back to his room. He took the family photo from the nightstand and looked at it closely. His mother's blurry face, his father's smile, his own chubby toddler cheeks. A family that no longer existed, if it ever truly had. Carefully, he placed the photo in the desk drawer instead of by his bed. He wasn't ready to let it go completely, but he didn't need to see it every night either. Outside his window, the sun was setting, painting the unfamiliar street in shades of gold and orange. A new neighborhood, a new home, a new reality he hadn't chosen but had to accept anyway. For the first time since his father left, Alex felt something besides fear and confusion, a tiny spark of anger. He had a right to be angry, he realized. What his father had done was wrong. It wasn't Alex's fault. It had never been his fault. 6 months had passed since the day Alex first told Miss Chen the truth. 6 months of living with the Carters, going to therapy twice a week with Dr. Lin, and slowly building a new normal. Spring had turned to summer, and now the leaves were changing color again, marking the passage of time with brilliant reds and golds. Alex sat on the back porch of the Carter house, watching Pepper the cat stalk a butterfly through the garden. He had grown an inch taller, his clothes no longer hung on his frame, and his hair was neatly trimmed. All signs of the care he now received. But the changes went deeper than the physical. "Alex?" Beth called from inside. "Your grandmother's on the phone." He went inside and took the cordless phone. "Hi, Grandma Rose," he said, settling onto the couch. "Hello, sweetheart," came the warm Florida voice that had become familiar over the past few months. "How's school going?" "It's good. I got an A on my science project about planets." "That's wonderful. You'll have to show me when I visit next month." After the initial shock of learning about his grandmother, Alex had agreed to a video call with her. Rose Parker was a lively woman in her 60s with Alex's same brown eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She had been furious when she learned what her son-in-law had done. "I never trusted that man," she had told Alex during one of their early calls. "After your mother left, he cut me off completely, said it was too painful for you to have reminders of her. I sent cards and tried to call, but he always had excuses for why you couldn't talk." The revelation that his father had deliberately kept him from his grandmother was just one of many painful discoveries Alex had made. In therapy, Dr. Lin helped him understand that his father's choices reflected Paul's own problems, not any failure on Alex's part. "Some adults don't know how to be good parents," she had explained. "They're so caught up in their own issues that they can't put their children first. It's not fair, and it's not your fault." Slowly, Alex was beginning to believe her. "Did you hear anything new?" Rose asked now, her voice careful. She never pushed about updates on his father, letting Alex bring it up if he wanted to. "Ms. Thompson came yesterday," Alex said, tracing patterns on the couch cushion. "They found out more stuff. 3 weeks ago, the police had finally located Paul. He had been arrested in Arizona for using fake identification and credit card fraud. The news had hit Alex like a physical blow, not because his father had been found, but because Paul had made no attempt to contact his son even after being caught. No phone call, no letter, not even a message through his lawyer. They're adding child abandonment charges," Alex continued, repeating what Ms. Thompson had explained. "Dad's going to be in jail for a while." "Good," Rose said firmly. "He deserves every minute of it." Alex didn't reply. His feelings about his father's punishment were complicated. Sometimes he wanted Paul to suffer for leaving him. Other times, he just felt a hollow sadness. "How do you feel about all this?" Rose asked when the silence stretched. It was a question Dr. Lin often asked, too. Adults were always wondering about his feelings, as if by naming them he could somehow control them. "Okay, I guess," Alex said with a shrug she couldn't see. "Dr. Lin says it's normal to feel lots of different things at once." "Smart lady, that doctor," Rose replied. "Listen, sweetie, I've been talking with Ms. Thompson and the Carters about something important. How would you feel about coming to live with me in Florida?" Alex had been expecting this question. The adults had been hinting at it for weeks, talking about permanent placement and family connections. Still, hearing it said outright made his heart beat faster. "Would I still see the Carters?" he asked. He had grown attached to Beth's quiet kindness and David's bad jokes. "Of course," Rose assured him. "They care about you very much. We've already talked about them visiting and you coming back to see them during school breaks. What about Tom and Ms. Chen? And Dr. Lin? You could write to them, call them, video chat, and we'd find you a new doctor in Florida. It wouldn't be the same, but you wouldn't lose those connections." Alex thought about Florida, the beach pictures Rose had shown him, the small house, with the orange tree in the yard, the spare bedroom she had started preparing for him just in case. A fresh start, far from the apartment where his father had left him. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Take all the time you need," Rose said. "No pressure." After they hung up, Alex found Beth in the kitchen preparing dinner. Grandma Rose asked if I want to live with her, he said, leaning against the counter. Beth's hand stilled briefly over the vegetables she was chopping. "Yes, we've been discussing that possibility. How do you feel about it?" There was that question again. How did he feel? Scared, excited, uncertain, hopeful, all at once. "I like it here with you and David," he said, instead of answering directly. Beth put down her knife and turned to face him. "We love having you here, Alex. If it were up to just what David and I wanted, you'd stay forever." She reached out and gently touched his shoulder. "But we always knew we were your temporary home. And living with your grandmother, that's a chance to be with family? Are you trying to get rid of me?" The question slipped out before he could stop it, old fears bubbling to the surface. "Never," Beth said firmly. "You will always have a place with us no matter what. This isn't about what we want or don't want. It's about what might be best for your future." Later that evening, Alex sat on his bed, looking around the room that had become his over the past months. He had posters on the walls now, planets and basketball players. Books filled the once empty shelf. A row of model cars he and David had built together lined the windowsill. He thought about starting over again in Florida. New school, new friends, new room. It would be hard, but he had done hard things before. And Rose was family, his mother's mother. Maybe with her, he could learn about the woman he barely remembered. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. David stood in the doorway holding a small package. "This came for you today," he said, handing it to Alex. From Mrs. Rivera. Alex opened the package to find a handmade card and a small carved wooden car. The note inside read, "For your collection. The apartment isn't the same without you. Stay strong. Love, Mrs. R." The unexpected gift brought tears to Alex's eyes. Despite everything that had happened, there were people who cared about him. Mrs. Rivera, the Carters, Grandma Rose, Ms. Chen, Tom, even Dr. Lin. They formed a safety net he hadn't had before. "You okay?" David asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Alex nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. "Just thinking about stuff. Big decisions on your mind, huh?" David didn't push, just offered his presence. "If I go to Florida," Alex said, slowly, "will you and Beth forget about me?" David's expression softened. "Not possible, kiddo. You're stuck with us caring about you for life no matter where you live." "Promise?" "Promise." David's voice was firm. "Some connections don't break, just because of distance." That night Alex wrote 2 letters. The first was to his grandmother, telling her he wanted to try living with her. He wrote about his fears and hopes, and asked questions about her house and the school he would attend. The second letter was harder to write. It was addressed to his father, in care of the detention center where he was being held. Alex started and stopped many times, crossing out words, crumpling pages, before finally keeping it simple. "Dad, I'm going to live with Grandma Rose in Florida. I'm doing okay. I want you to know I'm not waiting anymore, Alex." He sealed both letters and placed them on his desk. Tomorrow he would give Rose's letter to Beth to mail, the one to his father. He wasn't sure yet if he would send it. Dr. Lin said that was okay too. He could change his mind. The next morning, Ms. Thompson visited with more paperwork. The adults talked about custody arrangements, interstate agreements, and timelines for the move. Alex listened without saying much, still processing his decision. When Ms. Thompson asked if he had any questions, he had just one. "Will I ever have to see my dad again if I don't want to?" She looked him straight in the eye. "No, Alex, you have the right to decide that for yourself. No one can force you to see him." The answer settled something inside him. For the first time in his life, Alex had control over his relationship with his father. Paul had made his choice 6 months ago when he walked out the door. Now Alex was making his own choice. That afternoon he played basketball with David in the driveway, laughing when Pepper tried to chase the ball. He helped Beth make cookies for the school bake sale. He called Tom and talked about their science, teachers' weird bow ties. He did all the normal things that made up his life now, appreciating them in a new way. Later, sitting on the porch swing with Beth, watching the sunset paint the sky, Alex felt a strange sense of peace. The anger and confusion hadn't disappeared entirely. Dr. Lin said those feelings might always be part of him, but they no longer defined him. "I think I'm ready," he told Beth, his voice quiet, but steady. "To go to Florida, I mean." Beth put her arm around his shoulders. "You're the bravest person I know, Alex, and wherever you go, you carry that strength with you." "I didn't feel brave when Dad left," Alex admitted. "I was just scared all the time." "Courage isn't about not being scared," Beth said. "It's about facing each day even when you're terrified. By that measure, you're the most courageous person I've ever met." Alex leaned against her side, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. His future stretched before him, uncertain but full of possibilities. Florida with Grandma Rose, visits back to see the Carters, high school someday, then maybe college, a life no longer defined by abandonment, but by the love of those who had chosen to stay.